to go over some beginner street riding tips that everybody should know. Now, I am no expert by any means, but these are just some of the things that I look out for when I'm actually on the street and I want to go ahead and be as safe as possible. So here's the first thing that I can show you guys. So number one, when I'm coming to a stop right here at an intersection, I'm never directly behind this person, directly behind the car that's in front of me. Why? Because if somebody rear ends you, you're just going to be stuck in the middle of the car. You're going to get crushed. So you want to be off to the side, whether it be to the inside, preferably not, because there's going to be cars coming this way. So I prefer to be more to the outside. Why? This provides me an escape route. If I notice in the mirror, as soon as I stop, that the car behind me is not slowing down, what can I do? I can just go ahead and get out the way because I saw it coming. So that would be tip number two. So tip number one, not getting directly behind the vehicle in front. Tip number two, as soon as you stop, look behind you, because motorcycles, apparently, for a lot of people, are a lot harder to see than regular vehicles. So you will be at a higher risk of getting hit by other cars because the visibility is going to be limited. So every time that I come to a complete stop, first things first, I make sure that I come to a stop somewhere where I could have an escape route. Like right here, again, I'm coming to a complete stop. I'm off to the side. Why? Because I have an escape route. If I need to escape, I can just boom, go this way. I'll be good to go. As soon as I come to the complete stop at the escape route spot, next thing that I do, I look at my mirror. I look at my mirror because I want to see what the hell the guy behind me is doing. If he is not stopping, I got to be ready to go through my escape route because I'm not about to get crushed in front of the vehicle in front of me. So two very important tips that everybody's gonna have. Number two, or number three actually, you want to go ahead and be in a position, lady crossing the street, there we go. All right, number three, you want to go ahead and not put yourself in a position where you might get rear-ended. So what do I mean by that? When I started riding a motorcycle, I would often, when I was not ready, weave in between cars, starts lane splitting, which by the way is completely legal here in California to do. And then what would happen? I would get in front of all the cars. I would not have a safe escape route. And what would I do when the light changes, or when it was my time to go ahead and go at the intersection or whatever? I would not have the ability to take off from a stop, and I would go ahead and then stall completely. That is something that is so dangerous when you're out in the street. If you position yourself in front of all the other vehicles because you have the ability to weave between them and lane split, do not be the guy that stalls as soon as the light changes or when it's your turn to go, because the person behind you might not know that you're a beginner rider. The person behind you is just going to be fixated on the light, fixated on the stop. As soon as it's your turn, they're going to instinctually think, okay, well, I'm going to start moving forward. Then you go ahead and get rear-ended because the person in front of you or behind you doesn't know that you stalled because you don't know how to take off properly. So tip number three, practice taking off from a complete stop. It is so important every time that you come to a stop sign or when you're in an intersection or something like that. Extremely, extremely important to know how to do, because you don't want to be like me when I started off, and every single time that I did that on like the first week or two when I started, I would stall in front of everybody, and that would not only stop traffic, but it would also just put me at a really high risk of getting rear-ended. So that's number three. Number four, every time that I'm going down the street, I always stay away from the vehicles that are here to my right. Why? Because you never know if somebody right there is going to open the door and you might crash. So when I'm going somewhere, if there's not a lot of cars, usually I stay around in the middle of the actual street. Remember that you can be off to the left, in the middle, or off to the right. If there's not a lot of vehicles, or if there's vehicles to my right, I want to stay away from that position because they could suddenly just open the door. They can suddenly like move out the way because they're trying to get out and maybe you didn't notice. And next thing you know, you're running into a door at street speeds, and let me tell you, it's not going to be nice. You probably will fall off your bike. It will be a bad accident. So that's another one. Be very careful of your position in between like all of these cars, or be aware of the position where all of the cars are in. That way you make the correct decision not to get too close to the vehicles. Like right here, look at all these cars right off to the side. If I were to be like all the way over here, this is extremely dangerous, because I don't know if somebody's in one of those cars. They could open the door, I could crash. So I want to be in the middle, and I definitely don't want to be super close over here if I have oncoming traffic. So that was another thing that I was always doing wrong. Number 5, I believe. You want to be hyper aware of your surroundings. Like, you want to be looking so far ahead that you are just hyper aware of everything that's going on, even more so than in a car. So obviously you should be really aware of your surroundings when you're in a car, but when you're on a motorcycle, you really cannot afford for any second to, you know, miss out on things that are going out on the road. And this requires you having a little bit of foresight and looking ahead on things that might be going wrong. You know, like if I'm on the street right now and I can see that 5 cars ahead, this car is, you know, being a little weird, he's kind of weaving side to side, I know I'm gonna have to look out for that car, because that dude driving that car, or woman or whatever, they're acting weird. They could be a potential hazard for my safety. You know, they could crash, and then the guy in front of you could crash too, and next thing you know, you're the one crashing into them as well. So you want to be able to be looking so far ahead every single time then that you go ahead and you're in the street. You know, like right now, there's nobody in front of me, but I'm looking at all these cars that are way in front of me. Why? Because any one of them could go ahead and crash at any moment, or somebody could start randomly coming out of one of these cars, or somebody could open the door, and I want to be able to catch it in time so that I move out of the way, or I stop, or I weave away, or I swerve away, whatever it may be. You want to have that type of awareness and see it coming the whole time. You don't want to be the guy that's always distracted, just listening to your music. Yeah, it's cool to vibe out and all that, but you still have to be hyper aware of what's going on everywhere. In front of you, to the side of you, behind you. I'm constantly looking at my mirrors, but you just want to glance at your mirrors. That's tip number 6. You do not want to stay fixated in anything that is not right in front of you. When I began my riding journey, I would often be looking at the dash like 24/7. I would find myself always looking down, which is really bad to do, because if you're looking down, that means you're not looking in front of you. If you're not looking in front of you, you're going to be at a pretty high, dangerous position, and you might get in an incident. It's incredibly important to always look in front, always look ahead of you. Don't be looking down. When I look at my mirrors to see who's beside me or behind me, I always just lightly glance, I look over my shoulder, and that's it. That's it. You know, it takes less than a second for me to do that, and then I'm looking forward up again. You do not want to be constantly distracted. If you're not looking in front of you, you're at a higher chance of danger. Which brings me to like tip number 6 or 7. I don't even know where I'm at right now. Oh, nice bike. It brings me to my other tip. When you're looking forward, not only do you want to be looking at the cars and everybody around you, but you also want to be looking at what's on the street. Let me switch lanes right here. You want to be looking at what's on the street, because if you notice there's something in the street that could potentially affect the way that you need to go over it. If you notice that there is an object on the middle of the street, that the texture of the street changes, that the lines on the street change, all of those things are things that affect the traction on your bike. And what happens when the traction is changed on the bike? You're going to be at a higher chance of sliding, tipping over, falling over, whatever it may be. It could be highly dangerous. It could actually be extremely dangerous, and people don't realize that this could happen very easily. You know, if you go over some of these white lines, it could cause you to lose traction. If you hit one of those little bumps right there, that are like the lights on the street, it could cause you to lose traction. If you're going over railroad tracks like there are in front over there, it could cause you to lose traction. All of these little things are extremely important. So that goes kind of hand in hand with being aware of your surroundings. It's not just about pay attention to all the people around you and behind you, but also pay attention to the conditions of the street. You know, the street could be in really bad conditions. There could be gravel on the floor. There could be mud on the street. All of those conditions causes you to lose traction. If you lose traction, you are in a higher likelihood of losing control of your bike. And if you lose control of your bike, you're in a higher likelihood of falling over, getting into a car accident or motorcycle accident, whatever you want to call it. Very, very important. So that's another thing. And lastly, the only thing that I want to say is if you're at a state that allows for you to lane split, start out small. Start out really, really small. Like, if you just so happen to be one car away from the middle, you know, and all of the traffic is completely still, you might go ahead and want to try that. You might go ahead and want to start exposing yourself into, like, okay, let me go in between this car, just one car, and let me just do that, and let me start out this way. And then after that, start doing it with a little bit more cars. But you want to make sure that you're doing it when you feel comfortable with the bike, and when you can successfully take off without stalling. So, you know, start out small. Like right here, there's only one car in front of me. I could just go in between those cars. If you don't feel comfortable, guess what? You can just sit here too. Just, you know, refer back to the previous tips. Make sure that you're not directly behind here. Make sure that you have an escape route. Make sure that you're looking ahead. Make sure you're paying attention to your surroundings, and you're good to go. And then once you go ahead and level up those skills, you can go ahead and start feeling a little bit more confident. You're like, okay, I'll go ahead and I'll go between this car. It's only one car's length. Let me go ahead and do it. Once you start getting comfortable, okay, 2 cars length, 3 cars length, whatever, when traffic is completely stopped. It's one thing to go in between cars when they're all completely stopped. It's a completely different thing to go in between cars when everybody's moving. So that's a different ball game. Always start out small. Never put yourself in a position where you're going to be uncomfortable or fearing for your life or feel that you are unsafe. Because if you are not confident doing the things that you need to do, you're going to put yourself in a position where you might panic and you might need to do something to get yourself out of trouble, or you might get in an accident because you panicked and you got scared and you did something wrong or whatever. So if you don't need to do it, don't do it. Like right now, I could go ahead, look, 2 cars length. I could go in between, yes. Can I also just stay right here, look at the cars behind me, and then just go when I need to go? I can also do that too. So do not feel obligated to do these things just because you see other bike riders do these things. Always go to the best of your ability. Do not do things just because you think you're supposed to do these things. It's incredibly unsafe. Every time that you do it, you're going to put yourself at a higher likelihood of, you know, incidents or something like that. So make sure that you're confident in your skills when you do these things. Other than that, that's pretty much it. You know, I've been rambling on and on about a lot of topics, and in other videos maybe I'll go ahead and dive a little bit deeper into, you know, things to do when lane splitting and stuff like that. But this is just a general overview of the things that I pay attention to as a beginner rider. I am a beginner rider. I've only been riding for 3 months. I'm no expert. I still make tons of mistakes. I still, you know, I'm still learning a lot, but these are things that I constantly put into practice so that I can be as safe as possible. So, ooh, the ambulance. Something's going on. Hopefully he's not a bike rider that got into an accident. But yeah, that's all that I wanted to say, guys. If you have any questions or you have any more advice for common street riding for beginners or anything like that, comment below. Let me know some cool tips. Share your best tips for street riding if you're a more seasoned rider. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Peace.